let's then talk about housing more generally. And we know you mean business, and the Prime Minister says he means business when it comes to building more homes. So today you're announcing how you hope to speed up the process of buying a house, which everyone knows can be a real nightmare. What's the proposal?
Well, at the moment we're living in the digital age, but the house buying process isn't very digital actually. It's very paper led. So what we want to try and do is make sure that we can work with the land registry to have more digitalised copies, including digital ID and signatories. We do this a lot with our banks for various...
She's got big tone on the blower saying, you know what would make house purchasing far easier? Digital ID. Wasn't Peter Kyle talking about digital IDs for something else as well, like going to the pub and having a digital ID? All these people can think about every single hour of the day is digital ID. It is an obsession. That's exactly what it's obsession with digital ID. It's an obsession with digital ID.
Various different things now, and therefore we think that we can streamline that process and make it much quicker.
And beyond that, I mean, you've made a flurry of announcements about sweeping away planning regulation, getting rid of obstacles, speeding up court cases. But since you've been in office, the number of sites and units approved for development has actually fallen, and house prices have hit a record high just this week. The early signs are not good on this big mission for this government, are they?
Well, I knew it was going to be really difficult. We could see the trend, what was happening, and when I became Secretary of State, I think within the first month I was asked, do you want to review what you said in your manifesto around the 1.5 million homes? And we
you considered ditching your target as soon as you got in?
Well, people had said, Angela, this target, when we got into government and we saw the trend was going backwards. So not only was you having to reverse the trend, but then push ahead. So we felt that it made it even more challenging, but I wasn't going to give up on the target. That's why we're taking the action to make sure we've got the mortgage guarantee scheme for new buyers, and it's why we're determined to make sure we meet that 1.5 million homes target.
But mortgage guarantee isn't going to give us any more new homes. Again, all that it seems to be in terms of the Labour government's housing policy, which apparently all that they have planned in terms of social housing is 5,000, I think it is. 5,000 social homes is what's been funded by the state purse so far, which is it's a tiny fraction of the 1.5 million that they say that they want to build. 1 in 300. That is the level to which we're looking at in terms of their ambition with regards to social housing. The rest of it entirely seems to be down to, we will deregulate planning and then we shall pray to Allah that will come to fruition. And to the point where she's being asked directly by Laura Kuenssberg, how are you going to meet this target? This is a difficult target and house prices aren't coming down and it's becoming increasingly more unaffordable. She can't even give a real answer that actually probes into how they achieve this target. Just talked about the mortgage guarantee scheme and that they are determined to meet the goal. This means nothing.
Doing this in a context where public money is short and the economy is stuttering. Now, housing associations don't always have the cash to sign up to new developments. Builders don't always want to build homes if there might not be buyers at the end. The growth forecasts for the government have been downgraded. And also the government's actually made it more expensive for first-time buyers. You've hiked stamp duty, costs have been going up for builders, they'll have to pay more for national insurance for their staff. I mean, it's like you're putting the brake on and the accelerator on at the same time.
The housing market at the moment...
You know what would get around all of these problems? You know what would make all of these problems go away? Have a state-owned developer. Link it up with Homes England. You know it makes sense. You have access to loads of capital, gilt yields are on the way down, we need to stimulate economic growth, right? You can deficit spend because you're creating new supply, you're directly taking new money and investing into the supply side of the economy within the housing market. Therefore, you could be able to increase the supply of housing to make it more affordable. You could do that if you wanted to. Oh, well, housing associations don't have the money to be able to develop. Builders are having difficulty being able to build new housing. How about the state does it? How about the state does it? But no, that's communism. That'll be housing communism, clearly.
There is a considerable amount of problems with supply. So by making sure we're building the homes we desperately need and we're ramping up that supply, that will then help in the medium to long term. We've given
But that wasn't the question, Angela. The question was about how you are going to increase that supply. It's been already understood by yourself and Laura Kuenssberg that supply is the problem here. You don't need to repeat that. The question is the how, not the why.
Even the mortgage guarantee scheme, so that we've got the pipeline of people that are able to come on and the affordability. We've pushed councils and local authorities to identify the land, have a local plan and build the houses we desperately need. We've helped the social landlords with the changes I've made to Right to Buy and keeping the receipts for that. The £500 million that the Chancellor announced already for the Affordable Homes Programme, all these measures, including the package around planning, there's no excuses to not build those homes that people desperately need. And we mean business on this, because far too many people are not getting those homes. 160,000.
Angela, you grew up in council housing. You know that it is the solution. You know that council housing is how you fix this problem.
Children in temporary accommodation, that costs us billions of pounds. But I'm determined that I will meet the 1.5 million homes target. So we're tracking where we're up to. We don't expect it to change overnight. These things don't. They take time to have an impact. I've got my planning and infrastructure bill that is coming forward in the next few months.
And you're looking forward to having a punch-up with the other parties over that to show how determined you are?
Well, for me, it's common sense. We were elected for this because people can see it. Every one of your viewers today will know somebody in their family that actually desperately needs a council house, or desperately wants to get on the housing ladder, or they're stuck in house that's not appropriate for them because they can't downsize because the homes are not available. So they know this has to happen, and therefore I'm determined to change things. We're the builders, we're not going to be the blockers.
Now, a poll yesterday suggested that you would be one of the Labour politicians.
I mean, yes, we do need more council housing, Angela, and there is a big waiting list for it. So actually plan to build some council houses. This is the problem. This is quite literally the problem. They're allergic to state intervention because if it goes wrong, they will be responsible, whereas if you leave everything to the market, you can just shrug your shoulders and say, what can we do? Well, exactly, yeah, 100%, you're absolutely right.
Who might lose their seat to the Reform Party if there was an election now. I know one poll is one poll, but it is fair to say that as a relatively new government, broadly speaking, you've been failing to impress the public. Why?
Well, I think there's been frustrations, and I can completely understand people's frustrations, because we were elected on a mandate for change, and people want to see change and they want to see it immediately. It takes time to turn that around, and I'm confident that during the course of this parliament, people will see we haven't done slogans. These are structural problems that we've had.
We literally have a bingo card on stream, entirely populated by Labour Party slogans, because you keep using fucking slogans. £22 billion black hole, fix the foundations, Liz Truss crashed the economy, we are the party that will bring the change. End me, chat. Can't deal with this anymore. Builders not the blockers is quite literally a slogan, and you used it in the last 5 minutes. And when you've ever, at any point, anyone in the Labour Party who's been interviewed by the media at any point from the start of the election to now, they've never, ever, ever been able to iterate out what their position even means. They state the end goal whilst not stating the how, when people really do want to hear the how. People were so unaware of what their plan for change was that Labour canvases, very funny story about this, some guy on Twitter was a Labour councillor, and he felt very small and very upset because he got asked basic policy questions by a constituent and couldn't explain what the fucking policies were, or how they would actually achieve growth, or how they would actually support creating a better economy. And here you are saying, this is actual policy, these are structural problems that we're going to solve, and we're not doing slogans, when literally all we've had since May of last year is platitudes and slogans. It's all we've had from these people.
In our economy and in our society for a long time, and therefore turning it around does take a little bit more than 7 months.
But you started off and moved in up here, massive majority, 7 months in, you're down there. Now, for some reason, the message is not getting through. We know now that the Prime Minister had a voice coach. You're a straight talker. What tips would you give him if that was your job?
Well,
what about the fact that it was during lockdown, Laura? Why are we not scrutinising the fact that this was a voice coach moving between tiers during a lockdown? We're not going to talk about this at all? No, what tips would you give for Keir Starmer in public speaking? To be fair, Angela in it is better at public speaking than Keir Starmer is. Given his previous job was speaking, it's a bit strange, but there you go. Fair enough. But maybe should we scrutinise the fact that this was a breach of lockdown rules potentially? Was it too long ago? They don't investigate old crimes, potential old crimes. And to be fair to Angela Rayner, it is correct that systemic problems will not get fixed in 7 months. And anybody who thinks that they can be fixed in 7 months is obviously completely unrealistic. Like, Angela's right to say that. But you say these are deep-seated structural problems, and yet you're not actually changing anything structurally. You're tinkering around the edges, and you can't even describe what that tinkering even is.
Keir has been completely open about wanting to do his best for this country, and I admire him for that. I've worked with Keir now for a number of years. Now, I am straight talking. Me and Keir don't always agree on everything. But the one thing I will say about him is he won't do what he thinks is popular. What he wants to do is deliver, because there's nobody worse.
They're literally copying Reform UK on like immigration policy and on rhetoric, and now apparently on trans people as well, because they've scrapped their planned reform of gender recognition, which I was never expecting them to do anyway, so I shouldn't be surprised. But like, their explicit quote on this from a source was that they didn't want to open up this can of worms because they wanted to fight off reform. Like, you might as well just get Rupert Lowe on the National Policy Forum and have done with it.
Critic to Keir than Keir. In my understanding of how he works and my personal experience with him is if he will be feeling harder if he doesn't meet the target that he sets himself to make people better off than anything any poll could tell him or any election result. He will want to drive to win for the people of this country and to deliver what he promised and set out that he was going to achieve.
So you say he's his own worst critic?
He would be, yeah, absolutely.
But a new book reports that you said he couldn't run a bath. Did you say that?
Well, I'm not, you know, there's a lot of things that were said in that book that I don't recognise, to be honest.
So
and
did you not say that?
Did you say it, Angela? Will you admit that you didn't say those specific words? Or will you admit that you actually definitely did say them, because it's literally 100% true? Interesting that you did say at the start of the interview that she's a straight talker. I wonder if she'll talk straight about somebody as awful as Keir Starmer, who she knows is awful. She knows he's terrible. She knows the Politburo is terrible. She knows that the Labour Party inside and out is rotten to the core. She knows it's true. And she knows that she's part of it. And it's very funny to me watching her try and pretend that she has some kind of moral position outside of that. Well, no, you've lied down with the dogs, mate. You're covered in fleas. That's how that works.
And it's tittle tattle, so I don't recognise what was said in that book.
But that's not tittle tattle. That's what the woman who's now the Deputy Prime Minister is reported to have said about the now Prime Minister.
Sure, and there was lots of other things that people have said about me or anyone else, and no, I don't recognise ever saying that to anybody. But we all have frustrations when we're at work sometimes, and I'm sure people have been frustrated with me at work sometimes.
You probably know I'm going to ask you this question, and you might want to bat it away the same way you did the last one. Did you refer to a member of the royal family as something I'm not sure we're allowed to say on a Sunday morning, but in case we can...
Angela, say it. Say it. Say the thing that you said about him. Say the thing that you said. Everybody's thinking it. This is not an unpopular opinion to hold of this man. This is not something that's going to get you cancelled. Even people who love the royal family hate Prince Andrew. Go on, say what you said about Prince Andrew. Tell the class what you said.
Bleep it out. Did you suggest...
Again, I'm not making any comments about what said or not said in
Did you
somebody
deny that you called a member of the royal family a nonce?
Said in a book. I'm not making any comment on what somebody suggested.
That means that she said it. That means that she definitely said it. If she's saying I'm not making a comment rather than... That's not something that I recognise, right? If she's saying I'm not going to comment, you know full well she absolutely definitely said it. 100%. 100% she said it. And literally laughing and smiling while she said it. But just admit it. It's not an unpopular position. But they're obsessed with continuing in campaign mode forever. And they can't necessarily piss off the very small sector of the electorate who are both big royalists but also big Prince Andrew fans at the same time.
Yes, was said in a book, or actually the private conversations that I did have during the passage of the bill, which did get passed, and I did pass the bill, and I wholeheartedly supported the government at the time in passing the line of succession bill through Parliament.
But you're not denying it?
As I've said, the bill was passed. I had conversations with the government of the time and the civil servants around how that bill gets through Parliament, and that bill went through Parliament without any problems, and you know, I led that piece of work.
Also, really interesting that she decided to speak about the royal comment and the discussion about Keir Starmer not being able to run a bath. No mention of the coup, though. No mention of the potential coup where they had the Unite the Union and a bunch of other unions and Momentum all lined up to dethrone Starmer in 2011. Remember that thing that we all know happened and nobody in the media bothers talking about? You have the person who might be the one trying to undermine the leader of the Labour Party in front of you, Laura, and you're not asking about it, but you are asking about the idea that she thought that he couldn't run a bath. It's a bit weird, isn't it? It's a bit weird how there's this whole press omerta over the fact that there might have been an Angela Rayner takeover of the Labour Party. Hey there, if you enjoyed the video, make sure that you like and leave a comment. That helps the video out in the algorithm. If you subscribe and ring the bell, it'll let you know when I go live. I stream every day on YouTube and Twitch. You can also follow all of my socials down in the description. And if you want to support me in a more financial manner, there's a join button for membership to just 99p to be a member on YouTube, as well as a Patreon, and there's some merch there as well. And hopefully I'll catch you on the next video. Take care.